Hi everyone, welcome to Tuesday's Casual Watch Talk Live, where we've got a pretty good show. We're going to talk about a couple of the watch events that have been going on, but I am joined by my panel. I'm joined by, to this side, Patrick from Pocket Watch Time.
Hey everybody.
Joined by Mike from Zodiac Watches.
Hiya.
Hey, and I'm joined by Steve from Red Bar Austin. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
How's it going?
Well, Steve, do you want to kick us off with a wristwatch check? What you're wearing?
Well, yeah, sure. So just decided to pick something out since I have a red shirt on. So I've got the Enocar. This is a vintage Enocar Sherpa diver from the late 50s. I think it's a little hot radiation wise, but it's a fun watch to wear, and I don't wear it nearly as much as I should. So yeah, I just thought I would break that up for today.
Oh, awesome. Mike, what are you wearing?
Shockingly, a Zodiac, but I just charged it.
Oh, wow.
This is the Pro Diver made of titanium. So, yeah, but lovely when you've got a little black light with you.
Very nice.
Wow.
Yeah, just literally got in from pumpkin carving. So sorry about anything that's not quite professional.
Oh, not at all, not at all. Patrick, what are you wearing?
Well, in honor of Mike being on the show, I decided to pull out the Zodiac Astrographic.
Oh, well done.
Nice.
So,
Beautiful.
Just playing here. Finally got home because Mike and I, of course, were off in New York. So I got home last night, and I'm guessing since Mike is pumpkin cutting, you must be home too.
You have I have literally feel like I've not slept for 3 weeks, but it's all right.
Oh,
New
boy.
York, I am so far away from what New York City was today, but it was it's good. It's what was needed for the soul, but all good.
True. And Sam, what are you wearing?
Well, I'll round it off with the I'm wearing the date just. I've put it on a little rubber bee strap. I've just uploaded the review, so check out the review, everyone. See what you think. It took me a while to get it all compiled and put together because I wanted to do it right. Because obviously, I can't be buying Rolexes every week to do new reviews. But I really love this Rolex. The last live stream, a little public service announcement. I showed this Rolex on a leather strap that McCullough at Man Cave Leather had made for me. He's also sent me these excellent watch pouches as well, which I might talk about later. But what we found was that on the Rolex, the inside of the lug now has got like a ridge to it, so it basically wears away the leather part of it. I don't know why they've done it like that, but yeah. So I know I said I was wearing it on the leather strap, but I've took it off. So a little public service announcement: if you have got a new Rolex and you're looking to put a leather strap on, just check to see whether it's got. You'll see when the strap's off, there's like a ridge inside, and it's razor sharp. So anyway, little public service announcement there.
Excellent.
Well, shall we? Let's get on to the main event. So this weekend was Windup Watch Fair, and it was also watch time. Steve and I didn't go, so we'll be the inquisitive askers. So don't worry if you didn't go in the comment section. We'll hopefully ask questions, and please ask questions in the comment section as well. So Windup Watch Fair. I spoke to Mike France this morning from Christopher Ward, so I'll weave in some stuff that he said. But well, Mike, I'll start off with you. Like, how was the event? I mean, social media certainly made it look like it was quite busy, but was that what it was like on the ground there?
Yeah, it was nuts. This is the third wind-up for the year. San Francisco, Chicago, and New York. And if you've ever been to a wind-up in New York before where it started, it was in Chelsea Market. And it was a weird one because Chelsea Market's fantastic, but it's open to the public to do everything that Chelsea Market is. And it's full of, obviously, watch enthusiasts, but also some people walking around going, what the hell is going on here? And this year, they changed it over to the Altman building, a little bit just further south of the Flatiron area. But it was incredible. And they'd upped the brands from around 40 to 60. And you could feel that as a brand within there. There was a lot of energy, a lot of people. And then you popped your head outside, and there was literally just hundreds of people on that first afternoon ready to come in. And when the doors opened, it was literally ready, set, go. And they ran and dispersed like it was a concert, trying to get to the front row to catch Dave Grohl's pick. But instead, it was me and VJ and some watch people. But it ended up being just unbelievable. And at times the table was 5-6 deep, which in some ways is quite helpful for someone like me, because you don't have to do individual sales. You basically start presenting to groups. So it was fun. It was everything that Windup should be. And yeah, absolutely loved it.
Awesome. And then Patrick, what was your first impressions?
Well, I second that, at least partially due to just trying to see Mike himself, because obviously Mike and I were friends too. So I was like, oh, hey, I get to see Mike in the flesh. He was so busy at that table with throngs of people, because the Zodiac table definitely got sort of carte blanche. They were right up in front. And so, he pretty much was the barricade that the waves were crashing into. And so, I had enough time to pretty much just say, hey, Mike, give him a handshake and run out of the way while, screaming fans were pushing through.
No, it was like, I need to see that watch now, or English person, give it to me.
But I mean, actually, the good news for me, at least, they must have a very low standard for press pass, because I applied to go for the press hour, and I was granted early access, which means that 11 o'clock to noon was when press could come through. And for that hour, it was actually completely wonderful in terms of talking to the brands, because they were busy, but they weren't overwhelmed. At noon, 1 o'clock, as Mike said, when the doors opened, it turned into just it was an awesome show up, but it was pretty overwhelming. But for that first hour, you could actually go around, you could talk to people, you could take pictures. They didn't have music playing overhead, so you could kind of hear a little bit better. But it really was kind of like a big party once it opened up general admission. And I mean, it was pretty amazing. I've never been to a watch show like that, and it definitely was the biggest and the best that I've been to.
By the way, you shouldn't sell yourself short.
I've just got to show this as well. So Jason as well, Mike, you and Jason sent me this photo looking awesome. So he obviously got through.
Awesome. Yeah, he
Awesome.
did brilliant. He came to see us, and it was good to see some familiar face or people you've only seen through Instagram. And that is the beauty of these events, is you get to see the watches and you get to meet people that you might have read about or listened to. But I and brands like us get to meet you guys as well. And I think that's really important, because there's always sometimes that little disconnect with the new world of technology. But there's nothing better than a high five or a handshake or a hug. And Jason and I have been really, really become quite good friends. And I think that's quite a wonderful thing within this industry. And he also gave me a little gift, which was quite nice. And he didn't have to do that. But I think that's also the sign of respect within the watch industry. It really is that family atmosphere at some points.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mike, I guess I'll ask you, were you surprised at, was there a particular model that people were coming to see from the Zodiac stand, or were you finding that a lot of people, you were sort of reintroducing the brand to them?
Well, I think this last 6 months especially, we've kind of had that, we are now here, hear us roar. And I think a lot of people want to kind of get past the Instagram love that we've been given, which is great, but they want to feel it for themselves and see if it's a real watch. And that was the lovely kind of impression that I got. They wanted to discover the collection themselves. And I will present the brand to 1,000 people or one person exactly the same, and I'll give them my impression. So I start with the skin, we work through the compression, then we hit through the pro divers, and then it's all about the complications with GMTs. And then we talk about new. But as a whole, the watch that really wanted to be seen at the show at the beginning was the GMT that we made with Worn and Wound. And they did a special thing for the show where usually you would buy this and it's got this beautiful blue suede, but someone very clever called Kyle inside of the Worn and Wound offices asked if he could put it on a Jubilee bracelet, one of our Jubilee bracelets. Everybody in the office loved it, and they all agreed that if they were going to buy it or come to the show, let's make it special, and you could get the watch on the bracelet. So everyone wanted to see it. It's a great looking watch, but it was a bit of a smash. But obviously that's Worn and Wound's new release, and they wanted to see it. But for me, the backing up of what we've done over the last 6 months is what really helps us at Windup, and people go, actually, you're all right. I think we can. We're not going to make fun of you too much, but we've got our eyes on you. But more than anything, they just wanted to feel the crown, turn the bezel, see the crystal, and then back up what we've been saying over the last however long.
Yeah, awesome. Patrick, was there anything was there any watches that you went to see, or was there any that you were surprised that you thought you might not like?
Well, yes, definitely, for sure. One thing I'll say, because obviously I wanted to just see the lineup over at Zodiac, and I was surprised by actually some of the new releases you had there that technically, I don't even think are released yet.
Which ones are that?
I mean, the other meteorites.
Yeah, we brought, well, the gray one was going to be coming out with watches.com, and we had a few that were agreed to be sold with Worn and Wound. So we thought we'd bring the gray, and because it was such a quick sell with the orange one that you bought, that we also did bring the blue one, and we got to show people it. So you were very coy. That's very nicely said there. But we just thought, this is Windup, so why not? And also, throughout the weekend, the ceramic was released on Zodiac.com. Yeah. So we got to show it, which is great.
Because that was the part that I think I was kind of the most surprised about, was that I walked up there and I was kind of expecting to see the new ceramic, because that was kind of what I was like, oh, I want to see what it looks like. Right. But then all of a sudden I look down and I see a gray meteorite and a blue meteorite. I go, whoa, I didn't expect to see those here.
Do you know that this gray meteorite, this is, if you can see it over there, if you want to do your enlarging screen, this is the gray. So no one's really seen it just yet, but it's a true meteorite aesthetic, and I think it's fantastic. And if you get the old blue light on it, the lume is actually really quite fantastic. And one of the stories that came from the show for me, this is a personal story. There was a gentleman that came up, and he was missing an arm. I think he was born without an arm, and he was also, or most of his hand and wrist, and he was also quite strongly visually impaired. And so obviously we've got all the colors in the world, but it was that watch, the gray watch, that he could see the best, because it was tones and it was depth. Mm-hmm. And I was just loving that conversation, and I very much appreciated him letting me ask the questions like I was a 12-year-old curious boy. But we've all got to learn things as well, and I absolutely love that grey meteorite was the one that he could see the most. And yeah, that was a little bit of a crazy one actually out there. And I think we actually sold quite a few of the ones that were for Worn and Wound, and one of them actually went to a New York cop, so it was good. Oh, well done.
So they said, I took a picture of it of sister watches with the blue and the gray. So
well, that blue's stunning, actually.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know what that is.
But yeah, I have to say, for me, the meteorite, when I saw pictures of it online, the limited edition meteorite, that's the model I most want to see in person, because it looks stunning in the pictures. And I mean, I think meteorite is just such a cool material for a watch style anyway, but most of the time you don't always see it at the most approachable price points. So I'm very interested to see the meteorite Seawolf in the flesh.
Well, we'll be down in Austin. We'll be in Austin for the Microlux show in a few weeks.
I'll be there.
I'll get to meet you, and
I'll be hounding you.
Yeah.
Well, Michael is on a podcast of ours and somebody else's a couple months ago, and yes, I think then it actually leaked out a little prematurely. Not on our show.
Revolution.
But, yeah. But then you came onto our show, and I was like, did I hear the word meteorite? And I pretty much told him from the start. I said, you drop a meteorite watch, and one's going to be in my hands before I can stop. And I said, I'm always a man of my word. So yeah, the orange one came out, and that has the pop of color that I like. I mean, kind of like what you're saying. The gray, is probably the most universal. I think anyone could wear that anytime. And the blue and the gray are kind of the fun colors. And I said I went with the orange, but I was very pleasantly surprised by those. To get back to the original question, I really wanted to see the guys over at Vortic, because obviously I pretty much have a love with the pocket watch guys. So RT and the guy in black, actually, his name is Kyle, and he's the one who actually built my watch.
Oh, wow.
So I'd been on emails with him back and forth for some time, and I of course similarly had never seen him in the flesh. And I walked over there, and he introduced himself. Oh, I'm Kyle. I go, I know you, Kyle. You and I have been emailing back and forth forever, trying to get all the color variations right. And but they're just a really great company, because they're just so happy. I'll tell you some stories later, which most were at the Watch Time event, not the Wind Up event. but they were completely different shows. One was a happy show, one was kind of a not so happy show, and
it's
it
the
was
luxury
just
business. You're not allowed to smile.
oh, it was very weird. It was very weird, but yes, at Windup, I just saw a bunch of really happy groups, and
Did you
the last. Oh,
did
go
you
ahead.
stay for the panel discussion with myself, RT, and Don?
I missed it because I promised the wife that we were going to go get what's the name of the sushi where they make the sushi for you? That's like okabashi or something.
Like hibachi.
Yeah, and so we had a dinner reservation at 7, so I had to go to Wind Up and Watch Time all in one day. So I had to run across town to go to the other one.
Because that was the beauty, I think, of the Wind Up show. This one was different to Chicago. In Chicago, they had an area where they was recording the podcast, and the Grey NATO were there, which was great. But for this one, it was panel discussions, and they had 2 or 3 a day, or they had G-Shock demonstrating the power of how they test their watches, and it was fantastic. And we, as a sponsor, were allowed to have a little panel, and it was going to be about Zodiac. And I said, no, I talk enough, and I go on shows like this where I do podcasts. So I asked if we could bring in a few different guests, and we had Don from Vertex, and we had RT from Vortic, and we talked about bringing back heritage brands, and it was wonderful. It really was my highlight after meeting so many people of the show, because we got to really talk about why we do what we do, and I think that was important.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful little area downstairs. I went down there. Actually, I bumped into Jason from Watch Rolling down there, and so I guess he was probably going to go to that one discussion. But yeah, they had a really nice separate stage where you could have that, because as I said, upstairs was a little too chaotic. You wouldn't be able to hear anything. So that was it was a really good building for it. I hope they do that there again.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of interviewing Mike France this morning about a new watch that we can't talk about yet. But he was saying that
it's very nice.
Yeah, I know. I've only seen the renders of it, but anyway, enough about that. But he actually said that they were going to. I'm not sure whether he said they were going to do both this year, or they were planning on doing both next year, both Watch Time and the Windup Watch Fair. And he said after doing the Windup Watch Fair, it was so funny interviewing him actually, because he's almost talked himself. He's almost lost his voice because he was talking. He said he was talking so much. Because he's obviously so passionate about the brand when he was there. But he was saying that actually they completely changed their mind. And he said that Windup was the one that they wanted to be at. The energy and everything was just that he said that's what they'll do next year. Probably just do Windup instead of perhaps doing the Watch Time as well.
Oris did both. It's a lot of manpower to do it. They're obviously a much bigger brand. But most of the brands that are within Worn and Wound and Windup, they're at a certain price point, or to be completely honest, and most of them don't have retail presences either. So this is their chance to showcase who they are. I think Zodiac's on the way to make the decision in the future, but Christopher Ward, they were just as busy as we were, and they have such a good setup and a great team. So I'm not surprised that he said that. They were absolutely smashing it out of the park.
Oh, they were. Mike France never had a moment to himself. I didn't even go over and say hello because he was just too busy.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve, I put you off before. Yeah.
Mike, I have a question for you.
Sure.
You've attended, I guess, all 3 events now, right, for Windup Watch Fair. What difference do you see between them, if any? Are you seeing different types of people coming in for San Francisco versus New York or Chicago? What I'm curious your thoughts between the 3 events.
Well, I think it's a really good question, and I think that's why they do what they do. I think the West Coast, as much money as it's known as having in LA or San Francisco, it's kind of left away from a lot of these events, which is a shame. I mean, I went to a Watch Time event a few years ago, and I will still stand by the fact that was the best event I've ever done. And the reason why is because the crowd in LA, in downtown LA, was so thankful that all these watch brands had come. San Francisco is a bit different because it's all about the setting. Like, it's chilled, it's vibe. It was on a hill. It was a little bit pushed back, but it was a really wonderful way to start, I think, for us and for them and for the community, the whole kickoff of the watch events. And it was quite a buzzy time at the start of this summer, or just at the end of the spring. But it was very chilled. Chicago, similarly, has a I kind of, again, like the Midwest can get left out as well. It's not traditionally New York or South Florida, but that has a little bit more of a geographical power. Well, they'll bring Detroit, they'll bring Wisconsin, they'll bring obviously Chicago and Indiana, and people will drive up from around. So there's this really cool dynamic of differences. And then when you get to New York, it's just the Super Bowl, because you would not just obviously see people who know their watches, but it's people who are true collectors as well. And they're used to seeing all the big boys like you would over at Watch Time. But it's amazing how many collectors of Vertex, Vortic, Zodiac, Christopher Ward, people were massive fans of it. And it definitely felt very strong, should we say. And you knew that it was the end of the year for the reason. And being in New York in the fall, especially after the last few years we've had, it felt like New York and the watch industry was back.
Yeah, that's awesome. Got a question from from Pete. It says, question about worn and wound type brands. So many are really based on the owner, designer, founder. Do most, and if any, have long-term plans? So I guess the question would be for the people, for Mike or Patrick, did you find that people were talking about long-term vision of some of the brands more, or?
Do you want to see what was your opinion, Patrick?
I think it sort of depends on the brand. So I pretty much, and I kind of went in with the idea that I was going to sort of make a video about all the little brands that was going in there. But actually, after I got in there, I just changed my mind and I just decided I wanted to have fun. But I still kind of stuck to the question that I asked. And I pretty much went to every table. And even though I probably knew just as much about their brand as, they did, I asked usually they sometimes had a founder, but they sometimes just had a pretty face. And it sort of depends on who you got. And when you got the founder, it was kind of fun because like with Duckworth Prestex, it actually was like the grandson. And so, you got to talk to him and you got to talk to him about bringing back the brand and resurrecting it. And like a brand like that, I definitely think has a trajectory of staying power. And obviously same with Nicholas and Fears, they're not doing this just to sell a couple watches and bow out. But then I did see a couple brands where, maybe it was founded 2 years ago and, they just kind of decided to bring something back. And I was like, this doesn't feel like it has staying power. And there were definitely a bunch of brands that, because there were 65 of them, that means probably 30 of them were ones I'd never even heard of. And some of them, they just looked too much like everybody else. So the bad news is they didn't have something that really differentiated them. And some did the exact opposite. They had something that made them too different. And so finding that line of universality that's going to let you survive, but enough specialness that makes you unique is kind of what I think a watch brand really needs to find. And as I said, I'll give Mike some more prestige because I'm a Zodiac fan. I think they do it well because they take a classic dive watch, but they also put some fun colors on there so that from across the room you can see it's a Zodiac. And the other brand I'll throw some respect to, which was sort of surprising to me, was Formex. So I tried on the all carbon Formex. That thing was beautiful, and the engineering that they did in the strap construction and in the buckle tells me everything I need to know about the brand. Like, they care. So they pretty much make a deployant buckle that's made out of carbon, which as far as I know, nobody does. And, it has it's got quick release straps. It's got micro adjustments and a deployant. It's so over engineered for a buckle. And, most brands don't even think about a buckle. And so, as I said, I fell in love with them just because he had a 2-minute discussion with me about their buckle. And so, as I said, Formex, you get some massive props for kind of being the surprise winner of the show for me, because I wasn't expecting that much from them. But when I walked out, I said, man, I like it.
I've got maybe a little bit more of an insider knowledge or at least experience of what I'd say. And I could be here for an hour going through every brand and think why I like them. I'll quickly just kind of go through. If you go to Fortis or Formex, and then you think about how powerful they have been, or they could be, or they should be, and especially where they are positioned in Europe compared to where they are in America, the worn and wound platform is brilliant because people get to see them and feel them, where maybe the retailers haven't really jumped on board where they should have just yet. And when I say should have, I say that loosely because not every store has enough real estate space to show something like that. But I think when a retailer or a customer see Fortis or Formex, they get to go, actually, bloody brilliant. The next level, you'd look at someone like Vertex, and Fears, and I think that they, in terms of quality and story, heritage, professionalism, there's not too many brands out there that are better. The thing that maybe they don't have is a retail platform just yet, but you can see that Nicholas is working his way within that, and Don, he just doesn't make enough watches just yet to justify that. But then you could look at someone that's got that kind of happy accident, and I say that again with true respect, Studio Underdog, where he did that one watch with those colors and it went boom, and then so he needs to be there and tell the story. But can he keep up with demand? We know that. And then I'll look at somewhere like Oak and Oscar and Chase, the Chicago brand, and I think that guy is a really good reflection of the best of worn and wound and that type of customer, because he started very small. I know that I've seen him years and years ago trying to buy movements at certain parts of Switzerland, and him doing it and making enough watches to carve out his niche. I think that the worn and wound success story of someone like Oak and Oscar, who can stand there in between, Christopher Ward and Zodiac, and he's right there going, actually, I'll sell as many as you, and I've got this person out. He's a true professional. The next part of what he could be is anything that he wants to be. But then it's the decision of, do you carry on selling as you do, or is it going to go to the next bit where you're going to have to go into retail, but then you never make as much money on each watch just because there's a business involved and the pie gets divided a bit more. My favorite thing that I would say about the worn and wound crowd is that no matter how much you've got those bigger ones or almost skies, or the ones who are just about to decide what the next part is, you're always going to discover somebody who maybe could be the next thing. And for me, I love seeing Abingdon watches as a dad with daughters, a watch by a lady for the girls, and the strength within what that brand was to showcase that was brilliant. And so I think that the worn and wound way that they do things is really interesting, but you've got to take what you want from each one of those tables, because you might not realize how big or how small or how hard every one of those brands has worked to get to just that table, or they know they might be stepping back because it's a brand new platform and a brand new customer. So no matter what, I would say that it's probably the best show in the industry, in the American industry, because you get to find out things that maybe you couldn't before. But I think it's a really strong show for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned, Patrick, about the it's depending who mans the booth, because I went to a couple of years ago now, certainly pre-COVID, I went to the LA Microlux one, which I don't know, I think at that time it was run by a Blog to Watch, or they had some hand in it. And I went to the Vertex stand and I was really interested in seeing them and learning more about them. But they had somebody who they'd hired to sort of, be on the stand. And I think maybe just, as the other members were. And unfortunately, the person who was manning the stand knew nothing about the watches. So it was a real shame that it was. So I can see how it, your experience may vary depending on who you get to speak to at the stand as well.
No, I think that's fair. That's a really fair point. And you should really want to go to these things for experiences, be it to meet the brand head or to meet the rep that you've seen, but it should be an experience no matter what. And like I said, the biggest thing for me when you go to Worn and Wound is you get to see Zach Weiss taking pictures and talking watches. You get to see Blake Malin and James Helms, doing all the watch stuff they need to do as co-founders, but also, picking up a bottle if it's on the side, wants it to look nice. So it's really cool. It's a really good dynamic, and I'm proud that we're part of it.
So Patrick, you mentioned Formex there that kind of really blew you away in terms of their design. I've always wanted to see one in the flesh, because I think that because they've got such a unique system with their case, their case actually moves, doesn't it, on the wrist, or it has a suspension system in it. I think you really do have to see it. But was there any?
The one that I really liked was I know it's kind of got a longer name, and there's like a Leggera and an Elegance or something in there, but this is the one there that's, it's forged carbon case. Oh, once again, and hey, I'm going to be the only guy who doesn't get COVID at that event. But a forged carbon case with a ceramic top, and I just really, I think somewhere in there he made the video. So let's see if I can find that. He actually took it and pretty much showed me all the ins and outs of it. And there you can see the buckle, and you know it has all the adjusts. And I mean, what an amazing buckle!
Fantastic.
And I mean, so just as I said, just all that engineering for a piece of kit that you know most people would pretty much just ignore. You know, I said that just screams I want to learn more. So, but they were definitely one of the ones that I was very pleasantly surprised with. And I'm sure as I think about it, I can figure out who else is sort of the winners of the event. But I know they were probably the one that, you know, I went to the table and they impressed me a lot with the watch. I did go to a lot of tables where I was impressed with the story, because as I was saying, one of my questions was, you know, just tell me about your brand. And, you know, it's really charming when, you know, you actually have, you know, the grandfather or grandson of, you know, the Duckworth Prestex guy, and he's pretty much telling you, hey, look at this old pocket watch. You know, this was a Preston pocket watch, and this is what my grandfather made, and they changed the name from Preston to Prestex because they thought it sounded better. And well, we share the last name Duckworth, and he said, so we just made the brand Duckworth Prestex. And I'm like, makes sense to me. And
it was a good amount of British watches there, wasn't it?
Yeah, there really were. But so, you know, there were some charming stories and lots of very interesting invested people, and so it really was a very nice event.
Oh, we have lights.
Yeah. Mike, did you get to take your ceramic watch, and what did people think of it if you did get to take it?
Do you mean this one right here?
Oh, we hadn't planned that. We hadn't pre-planned that. Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. And actually I took it when we first got to New York on a little bit of a trip around New York to take some pictures, and I went over the Brooklyn Bridge with it. And the great thing about the dial is, and the poor thing when you look at it in this picture, but it's such a lovely midnight blue, and it is so special, so unique outside, and it's really, really cool color. But yeah, it actually went down really, really well. The case was very impressive for a lot of people, but the price again with Zodiac was one of those things. How did you do it for $1,600? And yeah, it was really cool. So yeah, we definitely sold pre-sold a few of them because it was just released over the weekend. But no, we brought the kitchen sink. We brought two display systems to showcase the core. We brought some vintage, and downstairs where we did the panels, we also had a whole setup with the old Seawolves from the 50s and 60s and 70s, and an astrographic, just to kind of show that we can tie the story together, and we're the custodians of this name. No, it was really good. And what also happened during that week, or just before we did it, we had the Red Bar crew global meetup. And so Zodiac managed to, or were asked if we would want to host a day. So we did a whiskey tasting, which was excellent. And we met with 35 chapter heads, and we not only showed them all the stuff that's coming out this year and tell them the story of the history, we also did a sneak peek for the early part of next year, which is really unique to do. And we really probably shouldn't have, but it was one of those things where this is Red Bar Crew. Steve knows more than anybody. I'm a massive believer of what that platform does, but it's just watch people. And so, yeah, we managed to show them without any cameras being turned on. And it was a really unique moment where no one wants anything for Instagram or to take a picture. They just wanted to say, actually, we're part of this community, and you're showing us something that maybe no one else has seen in the world just yet. And that's what these events can bring. So if you're ever out there, get to one. And I know that Christopher Ward had some things that were very special for the future. Oris as well. I mean, and then you look at someone like William Wood, Johnny from William Wood, the firefighters watch. He brought all the heat, pun intended, of all of his new watches, and they were spectacular, display and all. And so you can do what I did with Zodiac, but when you get to walk over to a brand that, this is where they can sell, he absolutely smashed it out of the park. How good is that bezel? And the stories that he's telling were very unique. That's great.
Yeah, they had an absolutely beautiful setup, the William Wood watches. So yeah, you could spot them from a mile away with all those really neat copper pipes and their setup. So it was definitely a very beautiful show over there.
He's also a smashing gent. He's such a good guy. So I think he and that brand could be something quite special, not just within that world of firefighters. I think we've all got a friend or know somebody who has that world within them, but he's actually making really good watches and telling good stories. And so I think that could be one of the brands, along with Monta, that could really, and Oak and Oscar, Vertex and Fears, that could really break through to that mainstream world.
And here's the Duckworth Prestex that I like.
I need to get to know that brand a bit more. He's such a good gent.
Yeah, and I said that's what caught me first. As I walked over there and I saw, he has a whole bunch of the old school pocket watches from his family, and they pretty much use those to inspire some of their builds. But I said a little pop of color and fun always gets my attention. So this sort of orange fume dial with blue hands, that was the one that I was like, ooh, that's a beautiful watch.
I got a question for you. How was the swag for you? Because we gave some good stuff. Did you get some good swag out there?
I'm going to let you know that I'm a very minimalist guy. I took zero swag from anybody. So
wow.
I came there with empty pockets, and I left with empty pockets because I don't like to carry stuff. So I
saw beanies from G-Shock. We had stickers and stuff, and yeah, there was some good bags of swag out there. So Oris had some good stuff too. They had the New York Yankees hat. So another thing, if you do get out to these meets, just have at it because there's some good watch stuff.
Yeah, no, the only swag that I ended up, I went to the Swatch store and I picked up a moon swatch. So I'll let you in on the secret. Nobody's watching. I got the sun.
I got the sun. That was the only one available.
So, and my wife got a Christmas present that cost way too much. So we got her a purse from Dior, and as I said, so I spent more money, but it all went to the wife instead of me. So maybe that means I'll get to buy a new watch soon. Yeah. But that was the only swag we left with.
Great. Steve, I think you told me about Oak and Oscar originally. Because is it something to do with the fact that is it called Oak and Oscar because he likes whiskey and his dog's called Oscar or something? That's the story, I think.
I think so. I can't remember, but I think he's also one of the co-leaders of Red Bar for Chicago, and so I talked to him because I happen to be up in Chicago and just message him sometimes. So yeah, it's a really great brand. But something kind of surprising for me. Speaking of Oak and Oscar, so I missed the Chicago Windup Watch Fair. I had a work event and I missed it by a week, but I did go down to the jewelry center or district, which is close to Millennium Park, and there's a lot of watch shops down there. And I'm a big vintage watch collector, and so I went down there, and actually I was interested to know if any of these people down there knew about this event. And surprisingly, almost none did. I was very surprised by that. Very few knew about the Windup Watch Fair or Oak and Oscar as a brand, but they were very interested to learn more about it. So maybe this is sort of a question for you, Mike, but how do you feel like you can kind of take things to the next level, maybe with your watch brand or all these other watch brands, to where, more of the mainstream or let's say well-established older jewelers or watch brands start to recognize that, hey, we need to start carrying Zodiac or we need to start carrying Oak and Oscar. How do you get to that point?
I think Oak and Oscar might be a bit different, so I won't speak on their behalf, but I do think that a lot of brands at that level have just got to decide what their next step is, if it's going to be retail or not. For Zodiac, it's 140 years old, and a lot of people know the name and they know old Zodiac. And I think what we all have to be aware, and I've said this for years with my time at Bremont, I said this to the guys within PR and marketing. It says people do not care, like in this little level, when we are a bit too proper and a bit too protective of, everyone's watching. Everyone knows no one's watching. They're seeking out at some level, unless you're the big boys out there. So what we have to do is just make sure that we are planting and seeding and being correct and true. And if you put the watches in the right places, it grows. But someone like a Zodiac, we've got the fossil backing behind us. they will help us push our message if we start to show them that we're money making. And we're so small compared to that group. So everything we're doing is going to help push us forward. But marketing on the mass level is the only thing that really gets it out there. Hype will get it to a certain level. If you do a certain watch of a certain colorway, and it's within our group, say with the casual watch talks, and it could hit Red Bar or some of the people out there, it's amazing how much it can stay quite within it. When you are a Moonswatch and you hit the market during the biggest watch show of the world and you're not attending it and you completely say, hey, look what we're doing, and the whole world goes, okay, I'm looking. That's a different level. And we all have to realize our levels and then just try and push up. But I'm not surprised that the vintage shops that didn't know about Windup, didn't know about Oak and Oscar. And that's because they are in a world which is incredibly hard and very, very busy. And so you only really know what's right in front of you. We've just got to shout loud enough, or we've got to do something that's interesting enough to make them sit up. And that's the ever progressive challenge within the watch industry, and one we're all up for. But they'll get there. When it's right, it'll be right.
We'd better do a plug for Orlando Watch Company, my local watch store here that's just started stocking Zodiac.
We love you, Carissa.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, they've got a great display in the window. I was just that's what I was looking at my phone for. I wasn't like tweeting. I was seeing whether I could find the picture in the window. They actually have a very eclectic mix of watches, because I think they're an independent watch store, so they have kind of the best of the best. They have Grand Seiko, they have a normal Seiko, and then they had Bremont for a bit, but they've got Zodiac, and then they also sell pre-owned watches as well. And they also do watchmaking classes as well. So I'm determined to sign up to one of those. But yeah, I normally deal with Nick there. He's put me on the list for hopefully that new Seiko chronograph. But
well, if anybody is anywhere near Winter Park or Orlando, go and see him. Not just because of the eclectic mix, but go and see Scott. Scott's the dad. He's the owner. He is the true antithesis of watchmakers in America. He loves vintage. He understands every movement. He is the hardest person I've ever had to sell to in my entire life. And I will always give myself a little pat on the back that in the end he wanted to buy from us with Bremont and now with Zodiac, but also because he stands no fools. He will tell you exactly what it is all about. But this is the best of the watch industry for me, because no matter how much we want Zodiac.com and these online retailers to work, you have to fall in love with the watch, and tactility is always key. And that's the type of store and that's the type of people. So I would always say that Windup is their Worn and Wound's way of really, really letting people feel and fall in love with the watches that they talk about so well. But Orlando Watch Company and stores like that, they're a dime a dozen. They really are special.
Yeah, and more importantly, just because everything in Orlando has to be referenced to its distance from Disney, Winter Park is 20-minute drive from Disney. So if you're with the family and you need perhaps need a little break yourself, you can easily drive to Winter Park. It's one motorway highway, and you'll get there in 20 minutes. Winter Park's beautiful. Looks like a sort of a very European town. We lived there for a year. Really fell for it, and really like the team over at Orlando Watch Company.
Will you have any of these shows? Have you been to any in the past, Sam? Have you been to any of the wind-ups in the past?
I haven't been to any of the wind-ups. I went to a LA Microlux, which was a smaller show. I guess this must have been about 2017. Ariel Adams was speaking, and I actually got quite friendly with Zal Baltimore. So Alan from Zal Baltimore was there. So talked to him quite a bit as well. He's been on the show, and then Jimmy Collins from Collins Watches as well. But there was a couple of watches. Actually, there was watches that I thought I would quite like, but when I actually saw them in person, I wasn't like blown away with them. Perhaps I won't say who those names are, but I don't know, Patrick. Was there anything like that for you? Was there any watches that I guess have got a lot of focus on social media, or maybe like hyped watches that, like for example, did you see the Accutron, the Astron, or whatever it was?
You must have been reading my mind. So,
what did you think of that? That's been hyped so much, but the price, I can't do the mental leap between the price because it's the update of the space view, but not really because it's a completely different movement.
Yeah,
but I just
completely different movement. For me, because kind of like what you guys were talking about with Winter Park and just having a store that's got some Zodiacs where you can try it on. Even though Zodiac is much more familiar sizes, so you don't have to be completely shocked about it.
Right.
The Accutron, it's a large watch, and I'm actually not really a fan of the standard, new do of the Space View. It's a little too formal, a little too dressy. The one that I love is their Evolution, or the next gen version that comes on the rubber. And I was really debating whether I was going to pick one of these up because I just think it's a fun, cool watch.
What was the price? What were the prices?
It's about $4,000, I think. But I knew the size was going to be an issue, and I mean, I got to try it on. It's ginormous on my wrist. So the flaring of those wide rubber, you couldn't even pretend that it would fit. So I mean, you've got to have probably an 8-inch wrist to even think about wearing that thing. Which, I know it's a complicated movement, so it has to be of size. But maybe they can work on the flaring of the rubber so that it downward angles a little bit more, because as I said, that sizing is going to squeeze a 6.5 wrister out of the equation, because I really love the watch. I can't functionally wear it. And I tried on the new Fears, their sports watch, and I said it fits beautifully, really, very nice, well made. Little pearl that I would never know that they actually put a little artistic pattern underneath the clasp, and there's a story about it that Nicholas was telling me, but I completely forgot. So
it's a flower. Yeah, it's actual flower that's he told me this. Oh God, he's going to tell me off now. It's actually a flower, but it's actually hand enameled, I think. So it's actually is quite special. It's like a hidden detail that he's put in the clasp, and the flower has a really important significance that I've forgotten.
Yeah, no, same here. I was like, because I thought it was really special. But here's what I thought was most special. When I was over talking to Nicholas at the Fears counter, I looked down and someone had placed this just down on the counter, trying on a Fears watch. And I'm like, holy crap. Because
I'll tell you what, that's a really good point, because people talk about Windup being the less expensive, of the shows. But I saw some proper wrist candy at the show as well, which was lovely to see.
Because I'm a huge Tantalum fan, so I just looked at him and I didn't even say, "Hey, can I try on your FP Journe?" I go, "Hey, can I try on your Tantalum watch?" Because I just love the heft of it, and I said, What's that?
Did he let
you?
Yeah,
he did, absolutely. As friendly as all can be, he handed me his $100,000 watch, and I didn't snap it on, but I put it on my wrist and took a picture with it, and asked him, of course, if I could take a picture with it, and he had no problems with it. So, as I said,
it was cool to say that you go to this, you see the high-end watches, and you see people asking if you can try your Tantalum watches on. It was also a very pet-friendly environment. So if you were doing 10-hour days and you were absolutely shattered, you see a little puppy and make you happy. Or I was also very impressed with the parents that were bringing their kids there. And I'm saying they were letting their kids wear watches. I had this one kid, his name was Tommy. Shout out to Tommy. He was wearing his dad's vintage Seawolf from the 60s. And he was rocking, because it was only like 36 millimeters. So he was rocking it so hard. And I was like, well done. Let me take a picture of him. But yeah, I think that's again another reason why Windup and these more open to the public shows are, for me, really, really important. But I did have one question. When you went over to Watch Time, did you go in the same clothes that you were wearing? Did you feel like you had to be a different dress? Was it something you enjoyed?
I'm the king of casual, so I love when people treat me like a pauper. So I really don't dress to impress. And no, I was wearing khaki pants and I think like a black jumper. And, I went wearing khaki pants and a black jumper and, just walked in like I owned the place. And, I don't think anyone looked down on you because you weren't wearing a suit, even though, I definitely did see a lot of sports coats and sort of a little bit more formal attire at watch time. But speaking of though, Mike, you're in trouble. I saw something there.
What did you see? I know.
Mhm.
Listen, the first person I saw when I rocked into the place was Nicholas from Fears, and I was like, "Well, you were very honest on your last Casual Watch Talk podcast." And then I just left.
I'm going to be nice, and I'm going to be nice, and I'm going to be mean. I actually think it looks pretty good. So, I mean, I think it's a little bit of a bits and pieces of a lot of things, but it actually wears very well and looks nice. Here's my negative. Zoom in a little bit. Who designed the side profile?
I'm not allowed to speak. So.
Yeah, because I mean, it fits, but what is that weird gapping? Like, so I just kind of looked at that. I'm like, that just doesn't look good. And I mean, who's looking at your watch from the side? So I know I'm being a nitpicker and stuff like that, but I definitely think they missed a little bit of an opportunity just to fill in a gap there, because that would have made it look a little bit more cohesive.
But was that the first time you'd seen the entirety of the Bremont collection as well, though?
Well, say it again. Was
that the first time you'd seen the variety and the whole of the Bremont collection?
No, I've tried on some Bremonts before, because there used to be, I think they're kind of falling out of favor. Mayors is kind of kicking their butt in my town, but there's a smaller watch shop who carries a little bit more smaller brands, and they've been carrying Bremont for years, and so I'm pretty familiar with them. I mean, obviously this is sort of their sportiest piece, and like I said, I'm pleasantly surprised with the top of it. So, and I told him, I said, hey, this is going to sell like hotcakes. So, I think you guys did well in its production. Obviously, being the critique that I am, I've got a couple little things I'd change, but all in all, I still think it's going to be a winner for them.
I saw Giles in the city for the first time since leaving the brand, and it was lovely to see him. And he was wearing the Fury, and it looked great on him. It's a proper pilot's watch. He was rocking it. So
yeah. I was with the rest of the Bremont crew in Austin. They were here for Formula One, so we had an event with them last week, and we got to see the same watches.
You had Rob there, and you had Chris, right? I saw.
Yeah, that's right. And my impression of that side profile, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like this is their trademark design. That kind of side barrel, or the interesting design details that you don't necessarily get to see unless you see the watch up close. I don't know. You could probably explain that a lot better than I could.
Their three-piece case, their triptych case, is the thing that always, for me, was their secret sauce. Because from the top, it was a watch, but on the wrist, it was wrapped around and hugged it and made it something really unique. I haven't seen the Supernova, so I wouldn't. But from your pictures, it looked a little bit like my first impression. It just looked a little bit like it was not quite sitting or fitting the way that Bremont, for me, has always been.
I mean, I could stick like 3 or 4 toothpicks in that gap. And so for me, because what's weird is it would be like a watch that didn't fit, but it does fit. And that's kind of what was so surprising was, lug to lug distance, it completely fits. So it's not because of my wrist size that it does that. It would do that on anybody's wrist. And so I was a little surprised, but it wasn't too bad. And then,
it's not 40 millimeters, though. I can see that for a fact.
Mm-hmm. It's a big watch.
Yeah. And I ran into the boys at RGM, so the pocket watch fan in me saw Roland was there, and that was fun to see, and the Chapek people were there. I've always wanted to try on an Antarctique, and so got to try one of those on.
I love Chapek. So, just amazing.
So that was really, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, those are the 3 pictures I took from watch time.
Wow, that's very different from what you did at Windup.
Yeah, that's kind of how not interested I was. And they had some beautiful watches. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Global Force was there. MB&F was there. I mean, I was just walking by, and all of a sudden I looked over to my side, and I was like, I think that's Kari Voutilainen. And then all of a sudden I saw his name badge. I'm like, it is Kari Voutilainen. So definitely there were some rock stars at that event, but their watches just don't always, push my flavors. And
Right.
so I walked by all of their counters and I tried a couple things on and then said thank you, and just, I wasn't even necessarily interested enough to take a photo with it.
Right.
And
Well,
so
my point about what you were dressing, because you looked good, by the way. So I'm never putting down any of the khakis or the black sweater. But my point is, because when you walk into an atmosphere like that, it is so different. So my point, I should have re-questioned it, was, did you feel like it was a watch event or a watch event you enjoy, or was it so totally different, or could you feel the watchness coming through no matter how high the price tags were in some of the watches?
are you for the watch time? Like, did I
Watch
feel
time
like it?
wow. I mean, I can walk into London Jewelers and I could walk into the guy that Steve was talking about, some of the vintage ones, and you can still feel watches. You still feel that same kind of feeling. You know what I mean? Did you feel like it was worlds apart, or was it just part of the same world, just a different level of, should we say,
I
shine?
definitely feel like it was worlds apart, just in terms of presentation. So
Oh,
watch wind up. Obviously, it had booths, but it almost kind of, man, this is going to sound bad, but I don't mean it to. It looked more like a kids science fair, like where everyone had a little booth and they had a little presentation.
that's
And I
brilliant. That's brilliant. It's so true.
don't mean that in a bad way. It's just it really was more just, here's a spot, here's a spot, here's a spot. But they did it well. I mean, you saw the oh man, now William Wood area. I mean, like, some of them were just gorgeous and beautiful. But the watch time, they had drapes, they had purple upshoot lighting, they had waiters and waitresses walking around with champagne flutes. So I mean, it really was two different events. One was pretty much glamorous and one was a bit more commercial. Hello. And I guess it all depends on the clientele. But as you said, Oris was at both, and I did get to finally try on a Blancpain bathyscaphe, because I've always wanted to see if their ceramic 43 would fit my little wrist, and it does. So
Right.
it was pretty. It was still fun. I enjoyed both, but I definitely think I enjoyed Wind Up better.
Do you like the fact that it was at the same time, or would you have preferred it to be Wind Up then Watch Time? Or would you like the fact you could have gone to both? Or did it not matter?
I like that it was at the same time, because, as I said, for me, obviously my wife isn't really into watches. So for this, I pretty much said, we're going Friday through Monday, but, Saturday afternoon is my time. So
Right.
this way, they were like 1.2 miles down the street. So, I woke up, I had my press access 11 a.m. I went to Wind Up first. But by about 2 o'clock, I headed across town to the other spot and, spent about 2 hours there and was done in time to shower up for dinner. And, I said it was perfect for me to just do it, quickly. I guess if you really were going to spend all day, it might be a little bit tough having them overlap. But for someone who sort of treated it a bit more casually, I thought the combo was perfect.
No, good. No, I agree. I think it was good to have it at the same time. I just wish that I could have gone over to see it as well. We were just so busy. So,
yeah. Well, that's been fantastic. Just see if there's any last questions from the comments section here. I don't think we've got any. But any final words on that? That's been a fascinating, another fascinating live stream.
I just think that you've got to get to these events. Just that would be my final thing. If I think they're, Microlux or Watch Time or the Wind Up shows, it's part of the community, and obviously that all encompasses every week your local Red Bar. So I think it's a really lovely thing that we've got in this country. It's really unique.
Yeah. And I'll throw one last photo up as just a reason why you would want to go, because there is a Menage, and for us weirdo guys who used to troll Watchville, and you'd always get your new little feed of this or that, and you hear about all these brands. I'm never going to see a Menage in the flesh, and so I was so happy to just see that they were at Wind Up and I could try it on and introduce myself personally to the brand. And similarly to, I think this was at Watch Time, you know, I saw a guy walking down with a Konstantin Chaikin, you know, automaton watch. And I was like, oh my God, I've always wanted to try one of those on. Can I see it, please?
Oh,
And you know, and absolutely, he was like thrilled to do it. So similar to, as you were saying, with Red Bar events, you get to see some watches you would never see otherwise. And being at New York, where you know there's more to see and more money and all that, you know, you really see stuff you'll never see anywhere else. And you know, I think that was the part that I loved, was just, you know, it was, I was doing a giant visual wrist check on everybody, as well as looking at everybody's stands and counters, because you never knew what was going to come around the corner. And it was very, very fun and interesting to the eyes.
That's a great point. Great. Well, thanks, everyone. Thanks to the panel. And thanks, everyone who's watched live. We'll see you on Sunday for the Sunday Social. So I'll just end the live stream now. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.